button. Are we going live? Still waiting. Here we go. Yes, we did
Yes,
it.
we're
This
here.
time I clicked go live, waited till we were live, and then hit the countdown. Because last
Excellent.
week people saw like 3 seconds of the countdown because it took so long to go live.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen. Well, hey, folks. I'm Lo from the DevRel team here at Hygraph. And of course, Tim is here. And today we're going to talk about building a CMS Camp event using
Yes,
Hygraph. And the front end is Nux, right? You use
it
Nux?
is. Exactly.
Excellent.
Yeah, and so
So,
we are. Oh, you go for it. You know this stuff better than me.
no.
Talk about
So, what we'll do, we're just going to walk through sort of talking about how the site first came about, what sort of questions you were asked, what sort of requirements, and then we'll go through how you built the models through that, and then eventually how they were implemented on the front end. We'll just have a nice little casual conversation about it. Should be good.
yeah, about building websites. But like this
Yeah.
is the thing, right? We work at a startup, we're doing product stuff. And so we are helping the CMS camp people with organizing. And then somehow it came about, it's like, why don't you also just build the website using Hygraph? And then we were all like, wow, we love building websites. We used to do that like
Yeah.
every day. And we also get to use Hygraph and our favorite front end because they said, you choose what you want. So I'm
Oh,
pretty happy with that.
yeah. That's the best case scenario where you get to
Exactly.
choose the framework you want to use.
The thing though is I had a full-time job and then had to build a full project on top of that. But we got all the
Yeah.
freedom, which is like this is the best way, right? We had a finalized design in Figma. And so maybe I can just quickly put it on the screen here. Here we
Yeah.
go. Can you need to zoom in a bit? Here we go.
Yeah, I think so because so we can read the words. Yeah.
This is a very bold design. Look at like lots of images and blocks and cool things. And so, what we wanted to talk about, well, should we talk about what CMS Camp is first, Lo? What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. So, and you're going to speak at it, right? So,
Yes,
can
I
you tell
will.
us, give us a little bit of details about the camp, like when it's happening, where it is?
Yeah, so I will speak on it and do a masterclass. So it's a full force ahead kind of event for me. And so basically, and I didn't know this when we started to build, I learned about what this event was while I was building it. And that was a very interesting thing because I had to
Yeah.
change the way I build it for that. And so CMS Camp is what the creator likes to call a bar camp, which is probably, I assume, the European version of what an unconference is. And so,
Yeah.
Lo, have you ever been to an unconference?
Yes. But I haven't been to a conference that was totally unconferenced. I have gone
Mm,
to lots of unconference sessions because normally, how I've experienced it anyway, is that you'll go to a conference and then there is an entire sort of scheduled talks, right?
yeah.
Scheduled sessions you can go to. But then there will be these sort of unconference block sections and
Okay.
they will meet in one of the rooms. And basically, as a group, you just decide someone has an idea or something that they're working on or thinking about and they will give a quick talk on it and then we would all discuss it. And they actually turned out to be some of my favorite sessions of conferences that I've gone to over the year. So it's pretty cool that
Mm,
this CMS camp is really built around almost entirely unconference sessions.
yeah. And so I didn't know what this was. I actually had Brian explain to me, our colleague. So it's literally like you just said. You go into a room with a group of people, and they're like, "I want to talk about this thing," and then you go on stage and you actually talk about it, which is
Yeah.
scary for some. But if you have the right people in the room, it can be magical, I imagine,
It
right?
can be pretty great. And I think
Yeah,
Brian just commented that the GraphQL unconference was fun. And it
yeah,
was super fun because I think that you get, we as developers I think people tend to think of us a lot of times as like a whole developer persona, but we're monolithic, but we're not.
yeah, exactly.
Developers think about a wide range of things and are interested in a wide range of topics related to development and
Yeah.
engineering. And so being able to discuss everyone's interest, I think was really kind of powerful in a way, not to get mushy about it.
Yeah, but it can be super cool because some people come from a different background. Like I can imagine on CMS Camp when I go there, like I know the talk I'm going to give requires a little bit of setup. And so
Hmm.
mine is kind of planned. But then all the other people, they just come with an opinion. Like I did WordPress this way, or I used Sidecore, or I did everything headless. And there's so many different approaches to actually doing a super cool thing. And so here I'll just point out how they set up the registration because it seems like, or the program, the first day is master classes. So this one is actually quite organized.
Yep.
But then when you go to the Saturday, you see there's a session planning session to then do bar camp sessions, which is unconference sessions. And then in the afternoon, there's another big block of like a few hours of those. And then there's some
Yeah,
master classes in between, but I feel like those might be in a different room. And
probably.
so, yeah, it's pretty cool to do it this way. But
Yeah.
sorry, go on.
So I was going to say, like, giving the schedule, one of the things that I found particularly cool when about this project was the sort of requirements around the scheduling and the ability to, like, you needed the ability to get like signups, right? For people
Yeah,
who wanted to
exactly.
participate in these unconference. So thinking through that sort of process and building that, like, I think would be a cool thing for us to talk about.
Yes, because I learned this on the go because I was looking at the designs and then I saw, let me see if I can actually find the link to that. I saw this here. So they had this form. It's like suggest a session. It's like, is this a CFP or something? Because I didn't know what an unconference was, right?
Right.
So apparently, when you fill this out, you will be on the website. Done. This is your session. So you can actually describe your theme. What type of session is it? Is it like I have a suggestion, or I want to do a discussion, or I have a wish for something specific? Your name, your URL, stuff like that, and then you just end up on the web page, which is this one. So this is my session that I put on here. And so we've had to build this in Hygraph where you could submit a form, something goes into Hygraph in draft mode, and then somebody goes in. It's like, hey, this is a cool session, let's approve. And then suddenly we have a speaker with a session and a color and all that stuff is now the program is filling itself. So that
Yes.
was a cool part of this website. And so we'll get there in a sec. So what they actually wanted to do on this site is like they want to use this in the future for many of their events. And so we had to build kind of like a solid data part about sponsors, right? We have gold sponsors, we have silver sponsors, we have a bunch of different things all around that, right? And so it was
Right.
really important they have a solid data model to do that. But then also they needed to show these sponsors and all the other kind of stuff like about the conference on the page with all these different kind of components. Like if they wanted to do like a news item or whatever, it just had to be able to like we designed 15 components. And some components
Right.
do three things, some components do two things, some components are a list, and inside the list, things can change. We just want to be able to build anything with those components, like a very mature approach to building a site. Because you have,
Totally.
yeah, it's like design components that work, and you change the properties, and that's it.
Yeah, and I think that, like, it's one of those things about when you are sort of creating a project like this, and you know that like this isn't a one and done, like this is going to need to
Exactly.
scale, and you're going to have many more. In this case, you're going to have many more CMS camps, so you need to think through that as you're building out your content model, right? So
Yeah,
thinking about the components in general, how can you sort of replicate your actual content design, right? Not just your design components, but your actual content, in
exactly.
terms of, can I build a model where maybe on one page, perhaps like the about page, sort of what we think of as just a like 2 column paragraph in text and a
Yeah,
title, look one
yeah,
way on the
exactly,
about page and then look totally different on the program page, and they're all the same sort of component or content model that you're using
exactly.
together.
Yeah. And so that's what makes this like very interesting. Like you have here, this is the program, and then you can learn more about it. And you see here that schedule component came back, but then with slightly different type things here. Um, Now here they're talking about Boy and Co as a company, and so you can see there's different types of CTAs. Like a CTA is also a little component. This
Right.
one, it's different than this one, and then this one, and so there's all these little things like puzzle pieces we had to come up with to kind of make this work in different ways. Like this hero can be big or it can be small. There can be a title in it, or there can be an image in it, or there can be a CTA in it. Here it's just an image, right? And
Right.
that way you have all these different approaches. And I love building websites that way because the moment your content editors kind of understand the slight abstractness of it, you can go from designing poster frames that don't move to designing puzzle pieces that make different puzzles every time,
Exactly. And then you
right?
have a repeatable content pattern, which is exactly what
Exactly.
you want.
Yeah. And then on top of that, we built them a way to do custom um, navigation. Oh, and so by the way, look how fast this loads. Like this is pretty crazy.
It's a, it's excellent.
Yeah, we want that, right? And they're pretty rich pages. Like there's lots going on. Oh, like another component. Sign up to our newsletter, but it's a third-party component. And so I had to make a thing in Hygraph to then load this in the front end, but they had to be able to put this anywhere, right? So we don't
Yes.
have page designs, we have component designs.
And they scale much better than having individual page designs, right?
Exactly. The trouble is, of course, when you start putting the components together, how does it look? So there's always a bit of,
Yeah.
you have to shave some details, like what are all the spacings between these components? Are some fonts bigger than others? So there's always some work, but that's part of the game. So
Right.
uh, should we go into the CMS, or do you want to
I
look
think
at it in another
so.
angle? What do you like?
I think let's get into the actual CMS in Hygraph and talk about some of the models.
Ooh, do I press this button, refresh to update?
Are
Because
you
what,
a gambling man?
you know what
Let's
I
do
love? We
it.
actually decided to do a live stream on the day we are releasing our new studio. And it just works. But let's press the button because there's a new version. Oh, and it works.
Excellent.
Nice. Yeah, that's always a lovely gamble. Anyway, so what we see here now, this is the new homepage inside Hygraph. So this was released today. So if you have your project, you can actually go here now and you see that this is changed. And so some regions have a different deployment schema. So if you're in, at least in Central Europe, you'll see this now. And so you can see the different models that we have, all your schemas. You have the implementation guides, which is very cool to see that we have that here.
Yes.
Learning about Hygraph. And I know in the future, this can be personalized to the type of user you are. And so you can make your own dashboards and stuff. I won't say too much about that, but here we go. Oh, and there is actually Marcus say that that we deserve the mug. This is this is actually an internal joke that Daniel, who is our incredible product manager on this whole new thing, um, got a mug that said, what did he say exactly? I have to say it right. It's essentially, I just released the Hygraph studio beta, and all I got was this lousy mug. And on the other side, it's a picture of him being slightly upset. But then we all got the mug, so I'm very happy with that. So thank you for bringing that up, Marcus. And also, Sume is actually in the chat here, and we were just talking just before this. It's like, oh, how do we get around this little
Everyone
thing?
is-
And it's like we just released, and don't stress, we'll cool. And I just pressed the button in stream, and
yeah,
she's like,
it's fine.
it
Everything
worked.
worked out. We're golden.
So, congrats, Sumaya. That's great work. Anyways, let's have a look at all this stuff. So let's start with the schema because I've
Yeah,
been doing lots of schema related things. And so if you have a system like Hygraph that's so strong at content modeling, there's different approaches that you can take for many things, but also super detailed stuff, right? So we have like
right.
enumerations that can be used in different places. We have big schemas and then components that are can be connected to these schemas. Is that the way to say it, Lo?
I
Do you think?
I think so. And I tend to like think about like so enumerations are great because if you are already trying to establish like a repeated content pattern like we're talking about, like
Hmm.
enumerations can really help you not only sort of scale your options further in terms of
Yeah.
making repeatable content because you're able to sort of provide many more options to your editor, but
Yeah.
it can also help you create some safety rails around certain things, right?
Oh, exactly.
Like the difference between if you are, an editor and you're using something from or string text, right? For instance,
Hmm.
that is not going to change. Maybe you want to create a drop down for that rather than having
Like
folks
this,
type that in every time.
like a
Exactly.
CTA style, primary or
Right.
secondary.
And so that
CTA
helps keep your
size, no,
data clean,
exactly.
right? And then also makes it a much clearer and easier experience for people who are actually coming into entering content. So
Exactly. So,
I really
um,
like those.
yeah, me too. They sometimes feel a little bit annoying to set up, but once you do that, you can just make a drop down that selects LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook or something, and it just like works. I'm so sorry. This cat really wants attention.
Yes,
And
every time.
and now okay.
You need to get the cat its own laptop.
Oh, yeah, so they'll work with us like on a fake
Yeah.
laptop. There might be a moment I turn off my camera and feed her, so she won't be that you know crazy. Anyways, um, I'm looking at the stream and I see that the connection is not super good. Can you still see me and hear me? Are we good?
Yes, I can
Okay,
still hear
cool.
you and
All
see
good.
you. Can everyone else? Yeah,
I'm assuming so. So,
I think we're good.
can you just spend like 2 seconds and talk about components, and I'll feed the cat for a sec.
Yes.
So then we have a nice.
So in a second, although I can't control this, we will get into components, and you'll see in the CMS right now we have some different components called schedule overview, schedule row, and that's sort of how we're going to show you in a second how we constructed the schedule and then how that ultimately gets implemented on the front end. And you will see also, I believe there's some form components, I think, Tim,
Exactly.
correct?
Yes.
Yes. And you will see how the unconference piece of it or the bar camp piece of it gets completed on the front end based on these components. And really, just in general, how to think about components are this is a they are also models in a sense, but they are really meant for internal use and are internal models that you would then add to a content model that you create. So, for instance, we see a
Yes.
page content model here. You would add components here that would allow you to sort of have some content elements like a hero, a CTA, call outs, the session form we
Yeah.
were just talking about. So that's sort of how to think about components. And I know a lot of times it can be confusing between sort of components and references.
Yes.
And
Exactly. That's a good one to talk about. Sorry to interrupt, because like what I wanted to say on this one, this project is very much a page builder type project.
yeah,
And lots of high graph projects are not. They're actually data shaping and data modeling and data building projects where you would build a graph of your content that you can then use for the coming 20 years. That's super solid, right? With all the granularity that you need. And in this case, what you can see the difference is these models are like that. Like this page model will be the same at all times,
Right.
except for that components bit, because the components, as you can see, they are very close to what you would see for a design, a banner or a CTA or a hero. These are much closer to what a design system is like versus these kind of models that like a session is a session. It has a title, a theme, a speaker, and a session theme. Right? Theme here is the description, and session theme is like um, a theme that exists for this conference plus a little color. Like this stuff stays. This stuff
Right.
is much more volatile, which will change next project. The other
Exactly.
things stay. And so that's the difference between like models and components. And also a component lives with an instance of a model like a page. Maybe
Exactly.
that's a good bridge to just go to the home page and see what that means.
Right.
When I click on home here, you see that these things like the slug, the open graph title, which is the thing you see on Google and Facebook and stuff, description and image, and sub pages, that's something for later. But if we build like you can do sub pages or not, that stays forever. That's like your base. But here is the components. And so this instance of the hero that you can see here, which is this here, that's connected to the schema of the homepage. You can now not go to the about page and select this hero because this is connected to this page because it's an inline thing and that's where the components come in. If you wanted to make 20 heroes and then from different pages select those, then there are connections to heroes. Do I say it right? Is it a connection? How will you call those?
I think, yeah, I think connection is a good way to describe it. And then also to sort of think about, like, when you think of a hero in general, like you said, it's volatile content. But
Yeah,
really, what we're saying is like, this is going to change and it can change even on this particular page, or if you add the hero component is available on another page, it can also be changed and they don't have to be the same as if
exactly.
you were to sort of hard content or hard code a hero in a page, right? So now
Exactly.
the homepage can have different hero image, it can have different banners, and that would make sense, right? When you put a banner as content on a front end, it's not going to stay up there forever, or it's going to change its messaging. So you want to be able to switch out that content as easy as possible.
Oh yeah, Sume is saying it's actually connection, but relation is probably the better word.
Better word.
Like
Yeah.
it's model to model. Like for example, an interesting relation that we can talk about for a sec here is if we look at the content for, let's say, a sponsor, right? Um, Sponsors are things that you can reference on multiple places. Like when you go to the footer, you'll see some sponsors here.
Monsters.
But
Yep.
when we go to the sponsors page, you see them in a different way. But the Hygraph sponsor is a thing that you can have a relation to in different places, right? And that's what that really is about. So these things live on their own, and you see they have different statuses, so they look slightly different. And so what's interesting here when you, let's say, go to the homepage, like you can actually say, well, let's move this one up, and now the banner is first, and then the hero is second. That's something
Right.
that's super duper easy and nice for content, page content building, if you wanted to do that. And also, what's quite fun, I think, if we talk about something that's more code driven, all those
Yes.
fields here, like background image, small or big, background image darkness, logo image, headline, description, CTAs. And here you can actually then add a sub CTA, and you can add multiple if you want to. Those properties come back directly in the code, right? So when we
Yeah.
have a look at the components hero, the properties are headline, description, background image darkness, logo image, CTAs small, right? That's basically headline, description, CTAs, logo image, all
Right.
that
It
stuff,
completely matches
right?
what you see.
Exactly. And so this becomes super easy to then work with. So if you build a page that has all these components, So the banner is yet another one. Here is the banner with the props of the banner: title, content. Do we show a background? Yes or no? And you have two types of CTAs here. Well, when we open the banner, you can see, hey, background, yes or no, title, content, primary CTAs, secondary CTAs. And so, with this in mind, if you build in your code all these things that match this, you can then query in GraphQL all of this and then just loop over that and then build your components and you have a website. And so
Yeah,
that
can you
all,
show one of the
yes,
queries real
of
quick? Are they
course, yeah,
easily
of course,
accessible?
of
Yeah.
course. So let me just go for the page query here. And so basically, we are querying a page based on a slug, right? And so the slug is here. In this case, it's home.
Home.
And then, of
Yeah.
course, we get the title, description, and image. And because this is a pretty big project, I have made some like little templates. How do we call this
Ah,
in GraphQL again? Fragments. So
Mets.
because
Yeah.
I have like these types of fields come back everywhere, right? So I have a fragments GraphQL where, like, for the CTA, if I want to query one CTA, I would have to put all those fields, right? Well, instead,
Right.
what I can do when I go to find a CTA somewhere. Oh wait, there's sub items. Like, for example, the banner has a CTA, right? So then the banner fields, the only thing I have to do for the CTA is actually say, give me the CTA
You
fields,
see fields.
which
Yeah.
then are
Okay.
this. So you can really fragmentize and template GraphQL. I didn't want to go that deep, but I just saw that. It's like, I'm going to have to explain because look, they all have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But
the
that's
whole,
why,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I think fragments are really great because you can, those things that you know that are going to be repeated once again, you can really just put them all in a fragments and then call them as you
exactly.
need.
Totally. And so each component you will see. So we have components in this schema. And then what do we connect to these components are the banner, the hero, and you see the dot, 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 and on. That references to the fact that this is like a little schema that's connected to it, which is a component. So that's how you
Right.
would query that stuff. And so if you now wanted to go to, let's say, this banner fields again, and then find the CTA, let's go to fragments, banner fields, then here you can do that again. And this one is not an on, actually, because I wish I knew why, but I don't know. I thought it was too deep. There you go. This works. Um, this is why we call this a live stream, not a webinar. We're learning together and we're
Yes.
showing people how we work on that stuff. So the whole point is we query all those things, right? Banners, hero fields, all the things. And so this query is 50 lines, but actually it's much bigger, but we abstracted away all the fragments. Like, there's a ton of fragments here, right? So we have some really fun things for specific image transformations that we do in our, in our image system. And you see, then, so we have image component fields on the image component that then have fields again. Like, there's lots of stuff going on here. But what that
Yes.
means is, and now this comes to my one of my more favorite thing here. Let me see where I can
Uh-oh. What is
show
it?
that. So there's basically a way to render all those components. And so I have a component mapper. Let's find that for a sec. So basically in Vue.js, this is a Vue.js project, but in React or in Next, this would be very, very similar, this approach. You basically
Yes.
map all the components that you have: the hero, the text media, the image gallery, the banner. That's literally all those components, right? All the stuff you see here. We have JavaScript files for those. And so we basically just make a mapping of those components with their naming. And so what I then have is we query everything. And then based on whatever I get back from the data, we loop over that. We find the components that come out of that query. And then we just dynamically create the component, because you can see here in Vue, this is the same as in React when it's like, maybe you call this like a dynamic component or a code only component.
On the
In Vue, you can say this component is the name that comes out of Hygraph, which is most likely something like image or supporter list or session form, and just
right.
make that component this thing dynamically, and then add all the things that come out of the JSON from that GraphQL result.
Yeah.
And so that's a super nice way. Like what you could do is is here. You could also do this, right? And then you say props is blah 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 blah. This just does that for you based on whatever JSON and in whatever order it finds it.
Right. And that might make sense to do just the actual hero component or whatever if you have a smaller site. But when you're
Yeah.
talking about a bigger project, right, that you also need to scale, like components mapping makes a lot of sense of how you would sort of break your
Well,
code down and
maybe I can
be able to
quickly
keep
show it
going.
in the easiest way.
Yeah.
Because I'll show you. Let's just go to localhost and I'll run that code. So rather than look at the live side, let's look at this because this is kind of a nerdy bit, but it also makes it really, really
I love the
easy to
nerdy
do.
bits.
Exactly, right? Right. So um, let's go to our page for the index. And so here I have this render page component and it looks at the page data that it gets back. I won't go
Mhm.
too deep into how we query that because there's some other code here I can quickly show. And that gets a little bit into Vue.js land, how that would work, right? We get content for type because we have pages, news articles, a few different things.
Right.
And basically here, for if it's a page or a sponsor or a news article, it returns certain things. And this wraps the GraphQL queries. Let's not go into that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we can talk for 5 hours. It's just not worth it.
Right.
Okay, so basically what I can do, I'll just show you the JSON for the page. So this would be the JSON for the homepage. You see all those things? Well,
Yeah.
the
Maybe
things that
zoom
are,
in a little bit.
oh yeah, of course, sorry. So this is always the same, but what is ever changing are of course those components because the order matters, whatever the props are matters, right? And the type
Exactly.
name hero matches the Vue.js file. Banner matches Vue.js file. Schedule overview matches Vue.js file. You see all the data that you get is here. So the only thing you have to do is figure out what is the component, banner, and then add this as the properties to that component. And then Vue.js will just render them. And that's what this is doing, right? So when we then look at render page, well, let's find that render page, right? So sometimes I added a slot because you might want to add something static in there. But that's not for now. So this render, I only made a render page component just to be able to insert something, whatever I want to do, right? So that would be something like this. Whatever I type here, you see, that's there. So it
There
just
it
renders
is.
it in front if you wanted to do that. Let's go back to where we were. Here we go.
And this makes a lot of sense too, not only from like, the size of the project and the scale of it,
And
but
that's why,
also
exactly.
the type, right? Because you did make sort of a page building type customized CMS
Exactly.
experience. And
Because
so
the
this makes
greatest
the most sense of doing it this
exactly.
way.
Like a good example of this would be, let's say you have an e-commerce site and your
Hmm.
homepage has just components because it just shows you like lovely, whatever storytelling. But then you go to a product detail page. Well, in that slot, you would hard code the details of the product with the selector and the add to cart, but then you still want components below to tell a story of that component of that product, right? And that's why you would do stuff like this. Anyways,
Exactly.
the component list component gets the same data that you send to it. So it's just a little push through. And so it gets that data and then it figures out, okay, so I actually, I don't know why I do this, but I go from data and I make it called page. Why I
H.
didn't call it page in
Yeah.
the beginning, I don't know. Anyway,
Choices were made.
choices were made. I had a lot to do. And so what it will do, if there are components on this page, which means if there are components on this page, well, clearly they
On the
are, right?
homepage, right?
Then loop over all those components. And for each component, look at the type name and generate my component dynamically. Well, so it's going to loop over and going to find hero. It's going to find banner. It's going to
Yeah.
find schedule overview. And so this little code will just find that component, because here in that function, it's literally the import is here.
Yeah. You have
So
them
it would
all
just
there.
literally return the import for, let's say, sponsor, and then attach whatever, all the information that this component has, attach that as a binding. So this is like a fancy way of doing props, what you would do in React as well.
Yeah.
And so all those things, title, ID, schedules, whatever, anything that's here will just be added. And there you go. And so if you
Excellent.
change something up in the order here, the JSON would just be different in order, and therefore something else would be rendered in order.
And
And so
right.
this is how you made a super dynamic component-driven websites, where, of course, you don't always want this, because I've worked on
No.
projects like, for example, I worked on this in the past. Right? When you go to this website, for example, we go to whatever. This design, oh, now it wants me to go to France, of course. Oh, too many pop-ups.
The
Anyways,
cookies.
this design is not content managed. This is being created by an agency that says this is where every detail goes, where everything you see here was in a Photoshop design, essentially. And so this website would benefit from, we have components in a template that never change, so the code doesn't even need any of that flexibility at all. This is how it was
Right.
designed, right? But this website, all that stuff we see here, well, let me scroll to the components. This can change every day. That's the point, right? Louis Vuitton
Right.
never changes unless in 3 months the agency designs a new type of template. So
And I
that's
would think,
why we
like,
hammer this down,
if
essentially.
you're in terms of like your overall business goals, like, and being like a global organization, right? You would want maximum sort of flexibility and
Exactly.
limberability to move around and play around with the content elements that you have. And there just may be a reason in particular why you would want to feature maybe all of, you've decided all the things, for instance, that you want to go on the homepage, right? But maybe you want to explore what order they should be in or what people should see first when they first come to the site. Like having a
Yeah,
setup
I could do
like
this,
this makes it much
right?
easier for you to do that in terms of your content velocity.
Oh yeah, so I'm currently querying published data. So let me just do, let's see if this works. Oh yeah, so I just set it to preview mode, which means I'm querying drafts. So I just changed the banner in the here. I hit save, not publish, because this is a live project. I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah,
People will be
don't.
upset with me, but this is just a draft, which means when I set it to preview mode is true, I'm just querying draft rather than publish. And then you can see how easy it is to move these things around, right? So I can just maybe put the schedule first. Wait, no, yeah, well, let's do the schedule first. And then I refresh. And then here's the
There we
schedule
go.
first. So you can really
Right.
easily work with that stuff. Or for example, let's put it back so he's not upset with me. Banner was first. Yeah. So in the hero, for example, let's actually just add a CTA.
Yeah.
So, and this is where the enumerables come in that we talked about, right? What is the style of this CTA? Well, instead of typing it, just make it something like that. So in my code, can say, hey, is this primary? Let me just code it that way. Let's make it big.
Right.
And let's make it go to an existing page. Let's say, let's go to sponsors. Okay, I'm not going to click publish because we're going to remove this again. And I think I coded it in a way, and this is decisions. Most likely, if there's an image like this, then it's not going to show the CTA. So
Yeah, you
um,
might have a conditional somewhere.
I'm not going to remove this because they will have to re-content edit it later when okay, wrong example, but you probably get the gist.
Right.
Are we back to before?
Yeah. Also, I can't believe we've been talking for 40 minutes
It's
already.
insane, right?
I want to make sure that we show the
Yeah.
form and talk about that process a little bit, like
Should
how
we
you
do the
sign
form
up for.
first, and then we do navigation, and that's it, I think.
Yeah, let's
Okay,
get
let's
into
do
the
form.
form now.
All right. So let's go to the form. Well, I say that. Where's the form? There we go. So the whole idea is that you can actually add a session. So it's going to be a suggestion for a super cool session. And my name is Tim. And well, do we have a URL to me? Yes, we do.
Somewhere.
I didn't
Yeah.
plan on showing you the press kit that I have for myself, or if you want me to speak at your conference, but just let me get a picture of myself. That was a CTA that was not meant to be there, but there we go. So now we're sending this, and it says, thank you for submitting your session. So, and now, of course, you cannot edit it anymore. So what just happened? Well, let's first have a look in the CMS, what this actually meant that we just did. Let's go to session. Actually, now you see there's a draft session that this is a cool session that just appeared. And then in it, you can see all the things we did, but also it made a speaker with my first name.
Excellent.
And when I open this, you will see Tim with my image and connected to my session. And so on purpose, this is set to draft, right? Because now the website owner can come in and say, hey, 20,000 people submitted something. What is spam and what do we like? The ones we like, we publish. The ones we don't like, we trash. That's why we do it this way.
And you want to have control over that, because you wouldn't want everything to just, when someone submits a form, it goes straight to publish, because.
Exactly. And so when I now go to the homepage, you don't actually see it, right? Because it's not published. I think, though, just for fun, if I set it to preview mode, I will probably see my session here. Oh, I don't. That's interesting. Oh, I think I know why. This is actually a hard-coded component where he can choose to say which session do I want to say.
So once he looks at it, Volker looks at it, then he can decide. That makes sense. You have another layer of control.
Exactly.
Over...
So probably when I go to the homepage now and we look for that session, suggested sessions, you see, this is actually hard-coded. So we could actually add now a session here in the list and say, let's add this one.
Yeah.
So that's yet another layer of protection, but there it is. And now it's downloading my image probably.
Right. And this makes sense for the type of conference this is, right? Again, like an unconference or a bar camp, like anyone can submit a session. So you do want to have control over what actually ends up in the session list on the homepage or wherever you're presenting that content.
So let's actually go over what that session form basically does.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So there's some form data. Oh, wait, before, let's show how this form is made.
Oh, yeah, did we not? I forgot.
There's actually a form here. Like, so let's see. On which page is it? On the session page. So actually, when you now go here, there's a session form that has a label of sending and whatever the title is. But then there's another component here that is a form field. So you can type in session title. Is it required? Yes or no? And then we have like the picture is a URL in this case, and the name and the theme. And then here, actually, let's see. Was there another one? Oh yeah, the type. That's actually, a selector. And so you can fill this out and make the form yourself. Which is then.
And did you do an enumeration for the session type?
I don't know. I'm just having a look now because, I think I did it differently. I just say if I think I didn't have enough time because this is the same form field component. And you just say, is this a type selector, yes or no? And most likely in the code, when it's yes, it's a type selector, I do some stuff.
So you just use a Boolean. Okay.
I think so. Let's see. Yeah, here. If the field is a session type selector, then query the session themes and show them here. So session themes is actually a thing that I query here. So I'm literally querying the session themes. So there's most likely a query here specific. Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Yeah.
I'm
okay.
So what I'm doing is you cannot fill them out here because it's an actual content thing. There is a session theme. So
Right.
globally, you can set up session themes. So we have
Right.
three of
And they
them.
will be defined. They are defined by name and color, right? That's how they're
Exactly.
denoted on the.
And so that's why I chose to do this, is just so we have a general place where we query the session theme. So the person that's editing this session theme can come back anywhere. We can have a page
Right.
with all the sessions per theme, right?
Right.
So they need to be able to use that. And so not having to retype that in your enumerable actually makes a lot of sense. So that's why I'm
Yes.
querying it elsewhere. Oh no, the cat is back. I just fed you.
Yeah. And
I'm
that's
sorry.
one of, I think that this highlights a big thing about in terms of content modeling
Yeah.
and working with a CMS that you can customize in this way, right? Is that there are a number of ways to sort of solve a problem or create a
Oh
solution.
yeah, totally.
And
Please
so you
continue talking
really
while I
need
feed the
to
cat.
spend some time to think about I love cats. You really need to think about how, what the overall scope of the project is, what type of project is, and what you're actually trying to do to craft sort of the right solution for the job, right? And in this
Totally.
case, it makes a lot of sense about the choices that Tim made. But if you were building some other kind of project, it may not make sense to do some of these things.
Yeah, and this is what happens over, how do you say this? Like, we built this website quite ad hoc. We were just working together. What do we need? Let's build it like this. Oh no, but I have to do that later, probably. So you iteratively work, and that's why it's so fun to do this in an agile way.
Yes.
Um, in interest of time, when you submit this form, I'm actually posting data to an API serverless function here for
Hmm.
sessions. And if it sends the right data and it says, oh, that was good, then it says, thank you for submitting. So let's have a look at what that code actually looks like. Because here is some magic that Hygraph offers that not all GraphQL places offer. So let's go to the session
Session.
post.ts. So this is a cool thing about Nuxt. When you just say post in this, you can only post to it. Right, so it's
Ah,
super simple stuff. And so I actually create a GraphQL client on the server here in Node.js with a token, because we have to be able to do a mutation to Hygraph. And so you need to be able to write to something, and you
right.
need to have the
Because you're
permission.
taking input. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why we have a token that says, well, with this token, you can write just a session and put it in draft. So it's very tight down. And for the people who consider like all CMSs have this stuff, right? Actually, this is a bit that a lot of CMSs don't have. And especially in Hygraph, the granularity of what who can do based on tokens or user accounts is incredible. You can
Yeah.
do a
The roles and
ton of
permissions are
stuff.
great.
Exactly. And so that's an important thing to mention here as a differentiator that we have. So I'm grabbing the form data, I'm grabbing my tokens from the configuration, and I create my client. And then here is the magic. So I'm mutating, right? So it's a mutation, not a query. And I create a session with speaker and image. And so how I started doing this, which in the end wasn't really needed, what I thought is I will make an image. I'll upload the image. Then
Hmm.
I create the speaker.
Okay.
Then I make the connection or the relation between the speaker and the image. Then I make the event, and then I connect the user or the speaker to the event. That's what I thought, because that's what you would do
Right.
in like MySQL and stuff, right? So if you have the tables,
Right.
you make the things, you connect the things. So I started trying that, and you have all the state to keep, and it's really, really hard. And then I
Yes.
spoke to one of our developers and like, yeah, but we did some smart stuff. We extended a little bit how GraphQL works with Hygraph, and so you can do it in one query. So
Yes.
essentially, what this was so cool. What I managed to do is like, okay, you set some things up. So this is like strongly typed, right? So we have an image that's a string, but you see there's
Right.
no hashbang behind it. I don't know what's the English word for this.
I
Exclamation.
call it that. Yeah. A bang or exclamation point.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
speaker these are not, they don't need to be there because you could do a session without a speaker. But these ones, like a title and a theme, they are needed. And so basically what you can do is create session, and the data that you're going to send for this creation is the title, the theme, and then here you get the message, the magic. The session theme is connected by an ID of the theme ID that you're sending. And this is what you get out of that query, right?
Right.
That because we have to connect the session theme as well, which is here, this session theme.
Right.
Okay,
That's why you're getting the
that's
ID.
with the
Yeah.
color thing, right? So we actually have to connect a theme as well to the session, and then a speaker to the session, and then an image to the speaker. So there's yet another step that I forgot. So we connect the ID to the session theme from the input session theme ID that somebody selected from the form. Then we create a speaker. Well, we create it literally. So we don't connect it, but create it. Name image, and then we create an image with an upload URL of whatever the URL of that image is. And because it's in this format, it's all connected together.
Yeah.
So you can either connect something that exists, or you can create and connect something that doesn't exist yet. And so initially I wanted to do, let's first do the image, then I do the speaker, then I do the session theme, then I do the session, and then I somehow connect them together. Or I went from 1,000 lines to, I don't know, 15, done.
Yeah.
And then return the ID, please. That's what this does.
So then once you return that data, then what did you do? Can you show us what you did?
Yeah, so once it comes back, let's go back to that session. Where is that component? Session form. So once it actually, if that ID returns, so if there's I kept it simple. If there is a response, then I just set the result to thank you. And in Vue.js, this result thing, like result is basically the same as you would do it with a set state in React, right? You have result and set result. And so in this case, in Vue.js, you set result to be a reference or a dynamic thing. And if I then do the result.value is something, it's the same as set result in React.
Okay.
It's basically the same thing.
The same.
Yeah, and so you can do that the same with form data. So the form data is like a whole reference of this existing object. So it's very close to how React does it. And based on that, the template changes, right? So if there's actually, let's say, if there's not a result, show the button. And if it's loading, it says sending. And if not, it just sends you the submit label that you wanted to do. But if there is a result, you say result. And result here, of course, is thank you for submitting your session.
Got it.
There are nicer ways to do forms, but this is such a simple thing. So why would you, have a whole plugin or module installed for just the simple thing? And so that's how that works. And the fact that this did so much is pretty crazy. But you will not see this, as far as I'm aware, you won't see this in other GraphQL CMSs. We built it.
Yeah, and I think too, like choosing to do it this way makes sense because also for the totality of the project, right? There aren't many forms. So why would you sort of take on more bloat in terms of doing a plugin or adding a thing specifically for forms when you're really just dealing with this one form? Now, if it comes down the line, you're starting to see, you need to replicate forms, you need more and more forms. Maybe then you have a conversation about, okay, how can we automate more of this?
100%. This is totally MVP, as we like to call it. And we call that minimum viable product. I've actually worked with a customer that at one point, they actually told us after the project was done that MVP meant maximum viable product. Which of course
excellent
is hilarious. But anyways, it is what it is. This is a minimum.
I'm going to adopt
product.
that.
Yeah, exactly. We have 7 minutes. Shall we talk about the navigation?
Yes, let's get into the navigation. The quick and easy topic of navigation.
It's potentially horrifically complicated, but in this project, we try to keep it simple. So what we've done is we have in the schema a navigation thing. So you could potentially make multiple navigations. Maybe in the footer it's slightly different than on the header, or if you're logged in, whatever. And so that's why it has a title, so you can identify, hey, what is this navigation? I added two fields, like a tickets label and a tickets URL. And the only reason I separated that out is the following. You see this ticket button? When we actually go to mobile, you have the mobile menu, but the tickets button remains.
Right.
And so I've had to separate it out from the rest of the thing to not show it in here on mobile, but make it look the same in the menu here. This is what you get sometimes where your front end dictates your data, which is not the cleanest thing to do, but I had to kind of cut that corner and make it happen, and everybody was happy. In that navigation, then you have a component, like a reference to components that can be multiple navigation items. So a navigation item is the following. That is a little component that has a label. It has a page connected to it if you want it to be a page that exists, or an external link, and you can make it look highlighted, which means it can look like this ticket item. So if you wanted to have location highlighted, it would look like tickets.
I see. Would it do? It would do the same sort of background and put like a
Exactly.
border around it. Okay.
Exactly. And so we had different ideas before for this navigation, because the idea was initially to say in the homepage, if I want to have also sub items of the homepage itself, you could actually then connect those that way. So when you actually go to the homepage, you can see here, where did I add it? There's actually a sub page, which is the about page. So you could also make it an extra deeper navigation if you wanted it. Like if you wanted
Right.
to have
Or
like
some or breadcrumbs, right? If you wanted
exactly.
to.
So it could be a hover, and you would see a little drop down, and about would be in there as
Mm-hmm.
it's a sub page. And then also when you go to about, you can traverse back up and make that breadcrumb that says home about. So
Yeah.
it's built in, not used.
And then also, I just want to plug really quickly Hygraph recipes, because Romina, our technical writer, wrote some really cool component recipes. And
Then
in the
explain this
recipes,
stuff,
we
I
show
imagine.
that,
Oh,
yeah,
there
and
we
they
go.
have 3 different types of navigation um, content models and components that you can put together, and they go from like simple
Mhm.
to sort of a medium level navigation to almost like a mega menu type for the third one. And it shows it's a good 3 solid examples of how you can build navigation
Exactly.
into your content model.
Yeah, and so this is kind of an in-betweener version of that. I
Yes.
built this before she wrote those items. Anyway, so this one now here, we call it the main navigation. It has the ticket label and the URL. And then here we can actually have all these items, right? So this is where this is interesting, right? Because here a component is actually a value of, okay, I'm not sure if you hear this, but our gardener is mowing the lawn in front of my office.
Oh, that's because at first I just heard a dog barking and then I heard the
Also that.
lawnmower. Yeah.
Let me close the
Yeah.
window.
So Tim is going to show really quickly all the navigation items, and you'll see how some of them are references to internal pages
Yeah, here we go.
and some of them are external links.
This is just the most chaotic stream I've ever done. But anyways, the point
It's
is,
great.
look, here, navigation item number 1. And then here you see it's the label for home, and the page is also going to home. So this is an actual relationship. And then here, you can also do, if you wanted to, like replace the page with something else or an external, or you can say highlight it. So when I hit save here, I'll go back in preview mode. Let's see if that actually is properly implemented. Preview is true. Ah, yeah, you see?
There we go.
But
Yeah.
as you can also see, they have not used this, and we didn't QA it because they're like, oh, we don't need it. That's why this looks so bad. Welcome to pragmatism. Let me just remove that. So if you wanted your, let's say, your second page to be something else, but not like about, you can also just do And now it would take that over. Like I won't change it now because it's a live website, but there you go. So you can change all these things up. And this approach is actually now components are not specific to how components look on the page and design, but this is more a data builder thing. And
Yes.
so if you see how I query that, let's go to the queries, navigation. We just go, give me navigation. And currently we just have one. So in the front end, I just hard coded, this is the ID. I know this is the one. So we
And then
query
you
it
render
here.
it.
And then title and the ticket label thing and the ticket URL, which is this one here, of course. Let me just refresh this. I cannot stand the look of this. There we go. That's better. I'm an actual front end dev. I cannot stand
I
bad
know.
pixels. And then we have the navigation item component. And for that, I want the ID, the label, external link, highlighted. And then if there's a page connected to it, give me the slug of that page. And so if we go to the, let's see, where is this component? Here we go. So I'm querying those navigation items. So this is just a nice wrapper function that I have that can query things like that with GraphQL. We don't have to talk about it. It's just some extra code. And so it will then look here. Do we have an external link? Well, let's return that for the link. If not, is there a page? Does it have a slug? If it's home, just do slash. If not, give me back whatever
Right.
that slug is, obviously. And so then you just loop over, or if they exist, you loop over and render. You see, there's that little get URL function that checks, hey, is this external? Yes or no. And also, if it's external, do a target is blank or a target is self. And so
Yes. So
this now
many people
becomes,
forget that.
oh, yes, I know. I also forgot it. And then Volker was
I
like,
forget it all
why?
the
Why?
time, but then I'm like, every time I'm on a site and then they don't do it, I'm like furious. I'm
Exactly.
like, why didn't it do a new tab?
And so, for example, like this is like, if it's highlighted, just give it the CTA class name. Otherwise, do something else. Actually, this should be, oops, also here. I think I probably solved slightly how ugly that just was. Let's do highlighted true. Let's refresh. You see? Ah, okay. Now the
Nailed it.
spacing is correct.
Yeah.
Oh, I just fixed the bug. I'll commit
Yeah.
that later.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. That's a good way to end the streamer, like over time now.
Oh, we're so over time. So thank you everybody for watching this.
Yes.
On my end, relatively chaotic, but kind of fun.
It was
ice cream.
great. Sometimes you just got to show the magic and chaos of
The
life,
real
right?
life, man. So, oh, by the way, before we go, everything you saw today was on a free account.
Yes.
The only thing that would push this project over the free account limit is the amount of components you got to choose. So right now, I managed to do it within the free tier, but there is a possibility that if you do this and grow it a bit, so you get 15 components rather than 10, this is where it pushes you over that limit. But the rest, this was all free. So you can actually just go here and, learn about that stuff and try.
Yeah.
So do you want to do the next CTA? Here, this is a good one.
So you can take a look at our docs. It's pretty comprehensive. We have a getting started flow. If you've never tried Hygraph before, it'll walk you through starting and signing up for Hygraph all the way to a full-fledged project that can be live with the live front end. There's our API references. There's all sorts of good stuff going. There's also implementation guides there that if you have never used Hygraph before, but let's say you use Next, Astro, or Nux, you can go there and learn how to connect them. Check out the docs.
Yes, big parts. And then if you have questions about anything you read in the docs, you can actually talk to Lo and I and the rest directly when you go to select@hygraph.com. So you can just join us and say, hey, about that CMS Camp website, why the heck did you choose to do it that way? And then I'll explain it to you like I was forced to it by my boss. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, you can talk to us directly, ask any question, beginner stuff, everything you want. And like once more, we have these really cool recipes on the docs that can just, help you, like, hey, how do we do a navigation, or how do I do localization, or things like that. It's all
Right. CTA, like putting
exactly.
together any like sort of component style that you want to add to a model. It's
Yeah.
there
And
and
so
more to come.
exactly. And so after this live stream, I never want to hear people say that Hygraph is actually not really a page builder CMS, because we can just do it. Even though our specialty is more on the data side, this worked fine. And the people editing this website are completely happy and fully in control. And so it's really doable and very interesting to build it like this, because it works kind of fine. Imagine, and this is a little teaser, if you can also live preview all this stuff. Imagine. And I cannot say more because we don't know when and how, but it shall happen.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining and chatting with us today.
Exactly. Awesome. And honestly, Lo, it's on to our next meeting now,
Yes,
right now.
it is.
We're
Right
we're
now.
minus 5 minutes into
We
our
are
next meeting.
late.
Exactly.
All right. So long, folks.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye.